Welcome to My Period Stories with me, Funke Treasure. This is a video podcast fast becoming a TV show where we talk about menstruation and all issues pertaining to it, or if you like, surrounding it. We hope that by doing this, we can normalize the period conversation and hopefully kickstarts the process of legislating policies about menstruation in Nigeria. Welcome again. We bring amazing people with fascinating stories to tell on the show. So, fingers crossed, we have a super duper guest on the lineup today. Stay with us. On this episode, we'll be delving into period poverty and matters arising. And joining me to have this conversation today is a woman of many parts. She is a senior program officer with the MacArthur Foundation Africa. She's a farmer. She's a feminist. And she's also a former special assistant to the Minister of Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory between 2004 and 2007. Let's just say this is a woman of many parts. She's into very many things that I know of, and it's such a pleasure to have her here on My Period Stories today. So let's welcome Dr. Amina Salihu. Welcome, madam.
Many thanks indeed, my sister. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I know that you're very busy, but we thank you for making time for us today. So let's delve in right away. Period poverty. What is it about? Let's hear it from you first.
You know, it's always said that poverty is multidimensional. In our space, in our society, we're faced with the poverty of ideas, poverty of knowledge, poverty of income, poverty of voice, poverty of rights. And you can continue to unpack the different dimensions of poverty. And I'm so very happy that you have chosen my sister Funke Treasure to, beam a spotlight on the nature of menstruation and how it constitutes a form of poverty. Poverty really is the absence of a need. I don't want to say want, because most times economics tells you it's about want. Want is something that you do desire to have, right? Sometimes you get it, sometimes you do not get it. But a need is something that is inevitable. You cannot do without. It's like eating. It is autonomous. Whether somebody earns an income or not, that person must eat. Whether a young girl has attained puberty and she wants to have a period or not, she would have a period. That time of a month or 2 to 7 days, or even more for some girls or women, would happen. So we have a poverty around menstruation, not only because girls and women at that particular point in their lives are disrespected, their dignity is under-affirmed, or that they do not have the basic needs that makes that period in their lives a comfortable moment for them. And there's also the challenge of period poverty, because society itself is lacking in the basic understanding of the fundamental importance of this time in the life of a young girl into womanhood. So the poverty dimension is really on both sides. It's in terms of the needs of the person at a particular point in their lives. It's also about the ability or inability of society to process and to give that support that is needed at that particular point in time.
Right.
The irony of it is that without that period, and I'm just going to say this and then, round up my thoughts. Without that period happening, society cannot reproduce itself. The state cannot have the labor force that it needs to be a state. That's the irony of ignoring this basic need at a point when it is needed.
Very well said. I was going to jump in to say you said something about paraphrasing now that period poverty is so critical to humanity in the sense that if women don't have their periods, we cannot perpetuate humanity. And when a high percentage of women cannot afford what it takes to manage their periods, then there is something wrong with our understanding of equity, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's an equity and a human right problem. I totally agree with you. It's also a social economic problem, because in the sense that if, look, at the intersection of menstrual challenge is also the challenge of water and sanitation, as you know. And at that point, in one's life, you need to be able to have access to enough water. You've talked about school children, you've talked about girls in school who have to stay away from school simply because, they do not have the safe space to have their period. Now, imagine the number of school hours they lose. Imagine the learning that is lost. Imagine the impact of that in terms of the awareness and ability of that human being to be fully formed, to be able to give back to society. Society and the state actually both lose because we're not able to understand the socioeconomic dimension of this particular need. And that is why I think in order to make it a public policy matter that it is already, we need to create the connection between what we think is happening at the domestic sphere and what really is a public sphere issue. It's a form of gender-based violence. And we're not really looking at it in that context yet. And until we do, the policymakers will not recognize the need to begin to shift the needle in terms of the right kind of policies that we need to have and the right kind of laws, if you ask me. Society would also not realize the way in which it is actually shooting itself in the foot by disrespecting girls and women at that particular point, in their lives. So it's an equity issue.
I want to say a really big thank you to the sanitary pad scholarship because it really helps me a lot. Before I got the sanitary pad, I normally use clothes, but immediately after I got in the scholarship pad, I use it every day and I take it to school in case I find my menstruation in school. I will just quickly go to the toilet and change. I want to say a very big thank you to the scholarship pad.
When they gave us the sanitary pad, my parents was even happy because they didn't even think that they can even give us, and the thing even helped me a lot. I normally change 4 times in a day. So I'd like to say thank you.
I benefit from it because I was able to share some of the pads with my friends. Some of them, like, they don't really have the money to buy pad. Some of them will be like, they are using tissue and that is not good. Like my mom is always telling me, it's not good to use tissue because you can get infection and it's not good for the body. So like when you gave us the scholarship, I was really happy. I could share it with my sisters, my friend, and some of my rehearsal mates. That's why I would like to tell you thank you, ma.
My first day that I saw my menstruation, I was like afraid. That day I was in school. I was like, I told my friend that, what's that now? Please, I don't know what, I can't even stand up to go buy food. I was like, I was afraid, I was ashamed. My friend went to go look for a sweater for me. So that day I used sweater and tight my waist. Even closing time got 7. I was afraid to go home because like all my friends would be looking at me like, what is this, that thing. I was like, but now when I have the sanitary pad now, I used to carry the sanitary pad inside my bag anytime I'm going to school because it can come any day.
The pad really helped me because when I do not have money to buy it, I'll be like, where will I see money? And it's not easy to ask your parents. Like I'm always shy to ask them. But since gave us a scholarship for the pad, I'm happy.
We have a lot of women working in the menstrual health space. A lot of women give out sanitary pads to girls, to low-income women across the nation, and the numbers swell every day. But it doesn't look like we're all doing anything because our lawmakers are not even, they don't seem to see us. What can we do to push this forward?
We should celebrate what we're doing. Because it's right we're standing in the gap where we shouldn't be standing. But imagine what the lives of women and girls who can't afford to buy a ready-made finished sanitary pad would look like every time of the month. Imagine that. We're standing in the gap for that, and we should celebrate that. In celebrating that, we also push back. We push back by reminding the policy space that, hey, people, we are here because this issue matters. But here, because some people who should do their part have not done their part. So the second thing we do, apart from standing in the space or in the gap, is that we bring visibility. Without visibility to an issue, you cannot have change. After visibility, therefore, we need to engage. And that is where I go to your point about they're not seeing us, we're not doing enough. We then need to engage with certain specific spaces that have the duty of care, that also have the resources to make this issue an issue of public national interest, because that is what it is. Before we go to government, let us begin with the private sector. The private sector is very good at lobbying for the things that help expand the space for its business. If more people can afford sanitary towels, you will make more money. The Procter and Gamble's of our space, for example, need to stop just producing and giving out, and they need to engage to ensure that there's actually a better policy environment that ensures that as a UBEC, for example, the Universal Basic Education Commission is setting aside resources to build schools, to buy textbooks. We should also ensure that UBEC is building toilets and UBEC is sinking boreholes, but UBEC is also, as it is buying textbooks, also buying sanitary towels as a need. And that's why I began by defining poverty for me as the lack of the meeting of needs and not the lack of the meeting of wants. You know, as a feminist economic thinker, I do not stop at the level of want. I have to go to the level of need, because that is really where the lack is happening. So the private sector has a role to play. In doing so, we would begin to be more visible to the policy sphere. We begin to be more visible to government. We have women who are elected at the state level, at the federal level. We have seen people move motions in terms of flooding, which is very important. We have seen people move motions in terms of insecurity, absolutely important, because yet again, women and children are left to suffer. But we need to see motions moved around the integrity and the dignity that is stripped of the bodily integrity of the female, just because she has to go through this almighty God-ordained process to ensure that she's ready to give life. And if you take it further, my sister Anike Adetreasure, it's the same reason why you find that women die giving birth. Nigeria is just about 2.6% of the entire population of the world. And depending on whose data, we make up for not less than 10 to 20% of maternal death of the world. What business have we got having women dying, giving life? And it's a life cycle thing. That is why you also see the stigma occurring from even the process of menstruation, and it is carried over to the whole period of gestation and of nurture, you know. And so it's a whole cyclical thing that we need to pay attention to.
Let me hold your thoughts there. Let me hold your thoughts there and bring you back to this poverty thing, because if I don't want us to go there yet, let's come here and still talk about what it costs on the average to have a pack of sanitary pads. When we say period poverty, what we're saying is that the purchasing power of the average girl or the average woman is so low, they don't have the money to buy a pack of it. In 2022, a pack of sanitary pads cost $2.25. I know that in certain places in Lagos, you find a pack of sanitary pads at 600 naira, depending on the type you want. Even though around 40% of Nigerians live below the international poverty line of $1.90 per person per day as of 2018. It means that right now, a lot of our women are pivoting back to wrappers and rags and foams and socks because of the economic condition. Now let's look at the solution that reusable sanitary pads are in this sort of situation, because there is nothing we can do about the pricing for now except to talk and make cases like this. Let's talk about reusable sanitary pads. Do you think is a proper solution to what we have? Some people don't like it.
Yes. So yeah, because of the lack of water, and the intersection of water and sanitation wahala, like we say in Nigeria. Now, let me share something quickly, my sister, that would interest you. I know you said don't go to policy yet. I'll come back. I was amazed to find that during this last presidential, campaign period, one of the presidential candidates actually had, as part of their, those kind of things that they give out to people to incentivize them to vote for them, had a nicely, neatly packed, reusable set of pads, I think about 6 styles, in a very nice case that was resealable. And I stood back and I looked at this packaging and I said, this tells me 2 things. One, the thinking is shifting. And that's why I said the work that you and other sisters, like all of us, do, this work actually matters. The thinking is shifting that, you know what, period poverty exists and we need to do something about it. And it's becoming like an election, if you will, matter. Otherwise, what has the candidate got? Having, the usual wrappers, the usual mosquito nets, but then a set of reusable sanitary pad. And it was nicely packaged, hygienically sealed, my sister Nikki Adi Treasure. The second thing he told me is that, you know what? Yes, it is time to deal with this as a policy matter. You cannot just bring sanitary pad now as a one-off thing. What is the policy atmosphere around it? So back to your question, therefore, the question is not whether or not it's made of cloth or it's made of cotton. The issue is it the choice of the woman or the girl? We need to go back to choice first of all. Some people prefer, and there are different brands in the market. Different women who can even afford to buy the ready-made ones use different brands, so they have choice. So at the heart of whether I use a cloth-based or I use a towel-based sanitary pad or I use a cotton-based finished, or I have one that ensures that my clothes don't get stained is the question of choice. Choice is also informed by economic, purchasing power, as you've explained. The sanitary pad in the market today, ready-made and finished, is within a range of 1,500 naira. And I'm sure you can do the dollar, depending on whose exchange rate you want to use.
Exactly.
Between 1,500 naira, and about 6,000 naira. It is not food, it is not water, it is not medication, it is not clothing. And you want this girl or her parent, to buy sanitary pad. That is why the stigmatization continues, because it's not seen as a priority necessity. Now, if we're able to have these things affordable, made a whole lot more affordable, women will have better choices. This for me is the starting point. If I'm going to use cloth, it should not be that my life is at risk, because there are all kinds of hygiene matters around menstruation. And our fear is that when you use the cloth-based one, you might not be able to do the hygiene very well. So it makes it less of a desirable one. But then, like I was sharing, I have seen the possibility of raising the ante in a way. Even the cloth-based one is hygienically packaged, so you can save money, you can use it over and over again. And, as long as you have that pride and that respect for your bodily integrity, choice should really matter.
Right. We've been speaking with Dr. Amina Salihu. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll talk to the policy part of period poverty. Stay with us.
حينما حل البلاء جئت إليك ذليلا أناجي من لي غيرك ربي يسمع مني شكواي من يستجيب الدعاء إلا الذي قد دعانا إليه من لي غيرك ربي معقود فيه رجايا لا تعاملني بذنبي يا جواد يا كريم إنني عبد ضعيف حظه لا يستقيم لا تحرمني ربي من لطفك العميم فسقامي تعبتني يا ربي الرحيم قل له كن فيكون قل له كن فيكون قل له كن فيكون قل له كن فيكون.
Right, welcome back from the break. You're watching My Period Stories with me, Funke Treasure. And we've been talking about a critical issue surrounding periods all over the world, especially in a developing nation like Nigeria. We've been talking about period poverty. And we've been, as it were, opening up issues about period poverty that maybe you never thought of. And still with me in the studio is Dr. Amina Salihu, who's been explaining what period poverty is and how it affects all of us, not just women, how we see the implication, the effects of not paying attention to period poverty in the fact that women are dying. There's a lot of shaming, there's a lot of stigmatization, and not many women can afford sanitary pads. That's what it means when you talk of period poverty. Let's pivot back to Dr. Amina Salihu. I did say we were going to be talking about the policy part of period poverty, how we found it quite difficult to convince our legislators on the need for us to have a legislation to even look at out of school children, how we have more than 10 million girls out of school in Nigeria, why we cannot give sanitary pads to our girls in schools, in secondary schools, why the private sector cannot organize to make this all-important item available at least to our girls in schools so that we can mitigate the rates of out-of-school children, especially out-of-school girls in Nigeria. Let me come to you. I've already said too much. So I'll just let you react to some of the things I've said.
No, I mean, you said the state so well. You said the state so well. And period poverty is just a microcosm of the way in which women are treated in the wider policy space. Someone once said to me that if it were men who were dying from childbirth, they would have found a solution a long time ago. But when you're treated as a second-class citizen in your own country, and you can tell from my background, I'm a very proud Nigerian. I love this country. But I also get exasperated sometimes when we miss the mark on even the simplest of things because we don't want to see what we ought to see. And so in dealing with period poverty, that's where we need to begin, first of all, that women matter. That without women, there can't be, we say it all the time, but we need to go beyond that flippancy of saying, no woman, no nation. We know that. The question is, prove it. There are different ways in which you can prove it. One is in terms of the respect you even have for women's participation in policy and political spaces. Because when something affects you and you're there to explain your side of the story and you're able to say, this is what works for me, then chances are that things will begin to change. So it begins with the way in which women's personhood and women's, role is actually perceived as half the story to develop this country. That matters. The second thing that policy needs to pay attention to is that it's not just about gender justice. It's about smart economics, because you cannot, play with even the needs and the rights of half of your population, because almost, look, by 2030, we're going to have a population explosion in this country of young people. And by 2050, we're going to have, we'll probably be over 400 million citizens, and half of those will be young people. So you see what that means in terms of young people of a certain sex, or the female sex. It means that we're going to have even much more need to have much more serious investment in safe spaces, in water and sanitation, in awareness around what are the needs of women, so that you can create a nation that is safe, a country that can be developed. So we need to start making that investment now, because it is smart economics, not even just about gender justice. We need to pay attention to that. And infrastructure is a big part of that, because if you take care of infrastructure, you'll be taking care of a larger part of menstrual poverty.